Hello, trading has closed on June 2, 2022. Let's start with our disclaimer. It's my trading plan for tomorrow, Friday, June the 3rd. Remember, I can be completely wrong. Any trade you make should be at your own risk. We'll go over our calls. Look for the pattern with the early high. Tends to be a rally day with a high in the final hour. We got that. Tomorrow should have the early low. We thought yesterday's action was negative. We thought we'd see lower prices regardless of how we closed. We had a target 40.89.44 that printed support under the target. This is what we said. These are my patterns for next week. It's always a thrill to cross an old target off the list. These things will print at some time, even though they don't always print when you want them to. 41.71.18. If we keep going higher, the next higher target's 42.13.50. I'm not convinced that's going to happen, but I can be wrong. We closed just over the target, so we closed at resistance. We'll see some more resistance here in just a minute. During the day, MEJT didn't think much of this rally, gives us lower targets, 41.40.53 and also 40.91.46. If we don't gap up smartly, those numbers should print. The latest by early Monday. This rally, this drop here, it said was false, price wouldn't stick. It said that this rally's false, price won't stick. It said this rally's false and the price won't stick. Here's the weekly chart. We did go slightly higher than we did before. We're still in the resistance area, so that's some more resistance. Doesn't mean resistance has to hold. Here's a daily chart. Here's a strong trend line. That's more resistance. Either you gap over the trend line, or I think the trend line's going to win. I had been looking at this as wave A, and I thought we're making an ABC, but it's at least possible we completed an ABC today, because if that's A and that's B, C is a perfect 1.618 times A. Now, just because that count works doesn't mean it's the only count that works. But in addition to the other resistance, you've got Fibonacci resistance here too. Now we have some dates coming up. Tomorrow's the employment report. That can really influence market action. I don't have a good way of predicting it. It can have a strong influence. I mean, we could gap up way up here, we could gap down, and any analysis one makes today should be tempered by the knowledge that a strong move in response to this report can change your analysis even before we open. So everything I say should come with a grain of salt. Now we have some other dates coming up which can be change in trend dates. We have a couple of Carolan calendar dates, spiral calendar dates, June 6th or 7th. This has about a 3-day window, 3 to 6 days, usually 3. 6th or the 7th of next week is F25 from the April 14th, 2000 low. If this is an AB, we have a big drop in C. Hasn't happened yet, but if that happens, it's one of the dates to look for a low. If we get to move something like this one. 9th and 10th of this month, there's a change in trend date based on the square of 9. I got this from somebody else a few months ago. I like to give him credit, but I forgot who told me. So if he wants credit and lets me know, I'll give him the credit. And then on the 18th, we have F23 from the March 22nd, 2001 low. So if we reverse from here, which hasn't happened, we have a number of possible dates to see a low. But again, if there is a low, it tends to occur on one of these dates, but one of these dates doesn't have to be a low. It doesn't work in reverse. So let's see how we count this. I did have this as A and B, but that's a 5-wave pattern. If it's 5 waves, it isn't a wave B. Here's the count we showed yesterday up to here. We had A, and then we had A, B, C. And I said if we had a big drop, we had targets down to, I think it was 40-20 or something like that. But let's see what happened instead. If that's A and that's B, we got C equal to A right at the low, which makes me think it's the right count. Now let's see what's happened since then. I can count this as 5 waves up. I mean, there's your 1, there's your 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 3. There's 4, and there's 5, and the fibs work. Now again, just because that count works doesn't mean other ones won't. But the fibs are perfect on the smaller time frames just as they are in the larger time frame. So if this holds, and that was something we don't know about at this time, but if this holds, it's a reasonable candidate for the end of this leg. And that means the count would look like this. We'd have an A, a B, 5 waves up. I think that's pretty clear, 5 waves up, and that could be C. And then we could have another leg down. Well, tomorrow's pattern has the early low. We could still gap up. If the employment report comes out before tomorrow's open, it can have an effect on market action. Technical analysis can't predict that. At least mine can't with a sufficient degree of accuracy. It may render tonight's analysis completely nugatory, but that being said, there are lower targets. Unless we gap up smartly, they should print. But if we drop right from the open, the wave count's compatible with a strong decline, with a number of dates next week compatible with a major low. Were that to happen, I'd expect a strong rally from that point, as last month's low had all the trappings of a major bottom, but not a final bottom. Gapping up smartly instead kills the wave count and releases the MEJT targets from their tendency to print within their preferred time frames. Now, futures are higher as I record this, so I can't rule out gapping up. That's possible. But the wall into the close often is followed by gapping down, and if that happens, I don't know that yet, but if that happens, the likelihood the wave count is correct should increase. So everything is a great fit. If we drop right from the open, there should be a sizable drop into next week. But the whole idea gets killed if we keep going up, especially if we gap up over resistance. And if that happens, the next price target I have is 42.1350. So let's see how we open tomorrow. It's the pattern with the early low. And that's today's call.